created another word for women, heroine. Matlab, it's a appendage.
Yeah.
Very well-known producer, I mean, studio head, tell me, oh, we do so-called sex determination on scripts.
There's a very strong feminine voice that is coming in the content, then we have to balance it out.
In the Hindi film industry, I feel confident to say largely women are included in a very safe way, and there is usually recourse to a posh committee and ICC. When you look at other industries, I don't think other industries have these in place. But we just have a bad reputation.
I was just about to say
It's a perception about the industry, maybe. Bad mothers, they will never want to play a bad mother. Like a mother who was thinking for herself and not only for her family and children. Or getting pregnant outside of wedlock.
There's a reason why they say we need more women in the writer's room and more women in the industry, because the result is Laapataa Ladies, which I've just recently watched and absolutely loved. And I have the director and the writer duo with me right here on India Today, Kiran Rao and Sneha Desai. Firstly, a huge welcome.
Thank you.
I have to start with the fact that I absolutely loved Laapataa Ladies, and the reason why this conversation in itself is very special to me, because I feel that exactly this is what happens when you have more women in the writer's room who can really understand the pulse of the audience, and I'm talking about the female audiences here as well. So amazing job at that. Recently I was just chatting with someone, and she just told me with something very interesting, that sometimes in the writer's room, it's not like the men in the industry or the writers who are men are trying to intentionally avoid writing about women or giving agency to their characters, but because you're conditioned since childhood in a way where you think that you don't really think actually about giving them agency. It just comes naturally. It's not, and it's just sad that they just forget about it. And to me, that sounded very sad.
Yeah, but it's true.
I want to know from you, because you've seen that shift. I think today that is at least changing because we have more women in that room who can time and again remind them that, hey, we are there.
It's too little even at this stage. I mean, at this point of so many years of filmmaking and encouragement of women writers, it's still a drop in the ocean, honestly. And I think there's a reason why, when people say hero's journey, you automatically think of a man.
Yeah.
It's like conditioning, like you said. It's you've created another word for women, heroine. Matlab, it's a appendage.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
So yeah, it is unfortunately still rare, and not in fact, we have so few precedents of women-oriented films, as we are called, doing really well at a box office. And that's also because men control the purse strings at home. I mean, women don't get paid for their labor at home, and they don't have an equal right to on the income that comes into the home, which they ideally should get half as personal income, which they do not, and so don't often have the decision making at home to say, ye film hum log sab dekhenge, so you still are catering to a largely perhaps male audience.
Yeah, they decide who will watch.
Automatically, you put on a hat. I actually had someone when I was pitching a project, I had someone, a very well-known producer, I mean, studio head, tell me, oh, we do so-called sex determination on scripts. Ki will this story be good for men, or will it be, so we'd say, हाँ ये male story है, तो इसके लिए इतने पैसे आएंगे, or we'll, and I'm sure they'll greenlight more of those.
Of course, I mean, we have seen examples, and endless examples. I want to ask you, Sneha, because writing a script like this also takes a lot, because you have to ensure you're pitching it to people, and mostly people out there who are only looking at it from one unidimensional prism, right? To explain it to them and to convince them that this is a story which unanimously everyone will want to hear, because see, again, we are not catering it to just one type of audience. It is for everyone to watch, right? And the first, I know so many times when I'm even pitching an idea, they're just like, but iske liye koi nahi dekhega, ye koi nahi karega. That's the most common reaction you'll get. But to keep tight and to keep, to stand your ground and say, no, I will find an audience and I will find the right people to support this. I know is a task. How do you do that?
It is a task, and it's kind of unfortunate that women have to run twice the distance to reach halfway,
Yeah.
as they say. But I think times are changing, and a lot of women are now finding their place in the right boardrooms, in the right places. The sets have a lot of women now. The writers' room have a lot of women now. So I think the female gaze is more and more getting into our creative space. Having said that, I feel women always had a voice. It's just that there's this constant ambivalence in them to use it or not use it, and that is the problem. I think there is a general tendency in all women that if they start wielding their powers, it will kind of reduce their femininity, which I don't think is the case. I think if you voice your opinions beautifully, if you articulate exactly what you feel well, then there are a lot of takers for it. And when you express your opinion as a woman, it doesn't really have to be a feminist or a feminazi statement. It has just to be a very organic, logical statement. Absolutely. It doesn't have to be male bashing per se. So whenever we tried to incorporate some kind of message in Laapataa Ladies, we tried to be very balanced about the whole thing, because we at some point have been victims of that imbalance, and we realized that if you're trying to prop up the male, it doesn't really mean that you have to, relegate the female to a side. So while we were celebrating women and their voices, we assured that there was no kind of male bashing in the film, and the male characters in the film are such naive, innocent, wonderful souls who are really, really helpful.
Absolutely, I agree, and I genuinely believe no movement or nothing great can be achieved solely by one gender or one, like it has to be a collective effort, right? I mean, the heroes are called heroes today because the women let them be. But while you were talking, another thing that popped up in my head, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the fact that, like you said, that but as women, we have to articulate our words and pick our words so carefully, which sometimes men don't. I mean, I can't imagine a man being very careful of what they are saying in a writer's room or anywhere else. But I know I have to be so careful when I'm picking my words, because we are representing and we are doing it for a larger cause eventually, right? Do you face that? Like, for example, you have given a story and you're pitching it right now, and of course there are some reactions where they say that, okay, can we adjust this character a bit? Can we make it more commercial? Can we give this person, can we add a hero in somewhere, or a heroic quality, or a scene, or an item? Multiple reactions, I'm sure. How do you deal with all of that? Because I know that, again, you have to respond, but you have to be careful while you're responding.
Yeah, especially because Sneha also writes for television. So
फिर तो मतलब हमने देखा ही है.
At times it's very difficult being the only lady in the room, and there are a lot of comments that arise. There is a lot of space that we have to constantly make for the male actors. If there's a very strong feminine voice that is coming in the content, then we have to balance it out. At times, if it's not really affecting the product, I don't mind relenting once in a while, because one has to be practical about it. But yes, if it is taking away from the grain of the story that you're trying to tell, I try to put my foot down. And if you try and explain it to them logically, I think, see, if the people are sensible about the whole thing, first of all, they do not come up with outrageous suggestions. But once in a while, if they do, I think you have to be really, really strong and put your voice forth and say that, okay, this is not happening, or this is something I don't agree to. If they still have a point and they end up convincing you about it, I don't mind changing it. But after a point, yes, I do put my foot down that this is not something.
No, I can completely imagine. But Kiran, is it slightly easier for you, or is it still a challenge for you to sort of stand your ground and say that, okay, this is something I want to be a part of, or this is how anything I'm associated with will have a voice like this? Because the same suggestions might come to you as well. It's not like just because you have been in the industry for that long, that doesn't come. Or if it does, correct me.
Well, I actually have had a very different journey, and I feel I'm fairly privileged because I've worked primarily with Aamir Khan Productions. Aamir is, in fact, very female first, women led, like he's very encouraging of women. And so I come, and for me, that was something that I worked with him to nurture in Amir Khan Productions as well. So we don't have that issue at all, honestly. And having said that, you know, the original story of Laapataa Ladies, which was called Two Brides, was written by a man, by Biplab Goswami. So there are, you know, we knew we wanted Sneha on to bring all these layers that she would bring, not just being a woman, but because she's such a good writer. But, you know, we look for stories everywhere, and we gravitate towards stories that, you know, tend to have some value in them. And sometimes they surprisingly are written by also a woman's story written by men.
Eventually, that is the backbone for most stories to be greenlit.
Unfortunately, that's one of the things that we struggle with, because, you know, there was a study done called Lights, Camera and Time for Action, which was looking at representation of women on screen and behind the screen. And we are still, it's abysmal numbers, honestly, even though we feel like so much has changed on the ground. In real, you know, kind of numbers terms, it hasn't changed enough. And I think it's really important for us to acknowledge that, firstly to understand that and see where the sort of like the bottlenecks are coming in encouraging more women to enter our industry, and then actively participating in encouraging that ourselves. And like literally putting our money where our mouth is, in a sense. So for us to include more women at every stage, and not just women, other you know, people who are otherwise not otherwise who are not considered. So for us it's a koshish. I feel like it's a start, I feel, for all of us to now and actually voice this and say that we need more women out there. Please, everybody, you know, let's decide to do this.
One of the major arguments that I've always heard whenever this topic comes up is the fact that safety aspect of women comes into play, where it is said that, oh, if the place was more safe, maybe families will allow more women to be in this industry, or just everywhere, like out there working. While there is of course some real, I mean, there's some weight to that argument, I agree. But at the same time, how do we like navigate despite that? Because it's not like that aspect.
We did do some pretty deep diving around the Me Too time, and we, in fact, at the guild level, at least in the Hindi film industry, I can proudly say that we put into, at least recommended to every production house that they have the posh committees. We trained all our members in posh sensitization, the kind of workshops that needed to be done. So we took active steps to ensure that we as a guild, as an industry body, were encouraging safety for women in the workplace. And I think by and large in the Hindi film industry, I can say that I don't think women are unsafe. Very, very broadly speaking, I think in the Hindi film industry, I feel confident to say largely women are included in a very safe way, and there is usually recourse to a posh committee and ICC should there be any such transgression. And honestly, even the guild offers that as an option for intervention. So we have tried. In fact, I honestly feel we are in some way an aberration. When you look at other industries, I don't think other industries have these in place. But we just have a bad reputation.
I was just about to say
it's a perception about the industry, maybe.
No, that is true. But I've also seen a little bit of reservation when it comes to, for example, The Crew is releasing very, very soon. I don't think 5 years back, just having three really like superstar women from the industry come together for a film which is essentially based on heist. I mean, that itself, for me, I'm sold on paper. You know, but to sanction that, because I am sure the first argument usually would be, can we just replace the girls with boys and it would get you a larger audience? That's the basic argument. We have all heard it, right? Now, is that changing though now with more such projects being greenlit? Like, you are from the industry, you know it, I think, inside out. Do you see that change happening?
I do. I do think there is more of an interest and there's more of an acceptance of the idea that women can helm these projects. I mean, you're seeing it, I think, almost a ripple effect a little bit from Hollywood, I hate to say, because you see so many more women finding the spotlight in the West. and it's sort of translated into the idea that okay, stories are stories. There is an audience for
both,
all kinds of characters, and this film has more interesting women characters maybe, or whatever. But there is a change, I feel, in perception towards these films, and it's taken a very long time, and I feel like it will still take some time before it becomes the norm. And I think that the reason for that is exactly what I was saying earlier, which is that women don't have control over spending their money independently.
Absolutely.
As long as we actually have change on the ground, you won't see it enough on cinema.
Absolutely. I mean, when you were mentioning Hollywood, the first film that came to my mind, of course, was Barbie, and the fact that it got snubbed at the biggest awards considered there. So I was like, things are still changing very slowly. Very slowly. Sneha, because you also have a background where you've written for television shows, and I can say it with full confidence because I've been an avid watcher in my childhood when I've seen television, right? Most of the time you have to sort of cater to a certain prototype when it comes to women characters on television, right? It could be frustrating because you want to tell different stories, you want to show the characters in different light, but television limits that to a certain extent, I would say. Do you feel more liberated now with films and with OTT, or is it still a task to find that voice when it comes to just showing this?
Television primarily caters to a women audience, a target audience, and
but a certain prototype.
Yes, most certainly, the B towns and the C towns. So showing an extremely urban woman, a very, very progressive woman, a woman who speaks her heart out, her mind out, is still a taboo on
That's for
television.
Monica then.
Yeah.
She's the villain.
Yes, yes.
You can't have a positive character and still have a voice of your own.
Absolutely. So whatever progressive content you need to show has to be beautifully camouflaged in societal norms, because the women themselves are quite wary of characters who speak their mind out. So television is definitely limiting in that sense, but I have genuinely tried in Wagle Ki Duniya, in Pushpa Impossible, to see to it that all the women characters have some kind of an agency, have an arc, have a say at whatever level they are in. Films definitely are a lot more liberating, even theatre for that matter, because theatre audiences are also quite open to seeing different characters, seeing women as villains, seeing women out there as business women or as strategists or somebody who has a say in the matter. Films offer a great canvas in that way. So compared to television and theatre, yes, definitely. It's my first film, so I'm relatively new to the grammar, and I haven't had so many flying hours, if I may say so. So I'm looking forward to collaborating with people who want to say stories where women have a great say.
One thing, Kiran, which she said, which made a lot of sense to me, was that she mentioned that women, sometimes the actresses themselves, are wary of signing on characters which are strong because they feel that, I am ready to do this, but I don't know if the audience is ready to sort of see me in that character, or if the character has a slightly grey shade. I think that is changing now, but is it still like tomorrow if you go with a character which has a multifaceted character trait, does it get difficult to pitch it to the actresses and to have them on board, especially actresses who are well established and like are probably, like, we rank them in A, B, C categories sometimes, like the A-listers?
Yeah. Well, there are certain things I think actors, women who act, are wary of in a sense, and those are the ones that go against the societal grain, like super violence sometimes on screen. It has to be highly justified. You can't just be super violent because you'd be judged immediately for it.
Absolutely.
Bad mothers, they will never want to play a bad mother, like a mother who was thinking for herself and not only for her family and children. Or getting pregnant outside of wedlock.
Marriage,
all these things that they feel are sort of societal taboos, I feel actors will think twice before they play. But honestly, if you take this away, if it was a Hollywood film, if they were playing it elsewhere where we didn't have maybe those sort of preconceived notions about women, they would because actors just want a good role.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, they love to play meaty characters who have grey shades or arcs or have like, are complex. So I don't think it's just that they are kind of aware of how the audience perceives them, and they want to in some way live up to this, I don't know, idea of ideal womanhood. And that actually has started for women centuries ago, and we are still trying to prove to people that we are ideal, because we'll run and do work in the office, we will come and look after our children, we will
we have to do everything.
we have to do everything and max and still be smiling and wonderful and relaxed at the end of it. Otherwise, then negative against you.
Then you're not like you're not the epitome or the meaning of women is very
so different. Often, in fact, when people ask me like why have you taken so long to direct, it's really a New Yorker cartoon comes to mind where these two women are standing in front of a painting in a museum or a gallery, and they say it's amazing what childcare and housekeeping can do for you. Like basically someone's taken care of everything for you, and then you can go out and just create, right? So in that sense, it's for women, we don't talk about it enough. There's too many pressures on the number of things women have to achieve in order to be at least even play in the same playing field as men. And I was like, I had a kid, and you want to be raising your kid, and honestly here it's always almost a woman's job to raise family. It doesn't, men participate marginally. There are very few men who will take an absolutely same equal active
and it's
role.
Celebrated. I'm sorry, like I need to point that out. Like if a man is helping a woman out in child care, oh my God, like this man is incredible, but a woman is doing it. There is no acknowledgement given to that,
and the appreciation is like, wow, you're a great mother. माँ को हमने देवी बना दिया है. Like you make you deify that quality so that women are happy being that. So there's all kinds of sort of, I don't know, ideas about being a woman that we have, and I think that translates into what people want to make also. They imagine that women sitting at home who are watching that television set want to see themselves and their struggles reflected. They want to see that, bringing up the family and being a good mother is valued, or staying at home and keeping your mouth shut in front of elders is valued. These things they want validation for, and perhaps that's what luckily in cinema we can take a few more risks, because we are in a 1.5 2 hour period you can do a lot of other things,
and there are trial and errors. I mean, I think that every time I have seen a film that gives more voice to just the simplest of things, and if the audience rewards it well, I think that is the stepping stone, like that is where it changes. And something that you wonderfully put, and I completely agree to it, that when a character which is slightly more violent just by nature, because every human is very different, but for a woman it needs to be justified that I am violent because this has happened to me. That because never exists when you're writing a male character, because I've seen so many characters who are just angry for the heck of it. Like, I really want to understand why are you angry, but you are angry.
There's this great film called The Lost Daughter, made by Maggie Gyllenhaal, in which the brilliant Olivia Colman plays this mother who is, she's recounting a time when she actually ran away from home and left her children, just abandoned her children. And it's she talks about how wonderful that felt. But how, she must have had to deal with so much guilt about leaving her family. And actually in India, every day you hear stories about men abandoning their families. So all the women who work with me in my house, all of them are women who've raised their kids single-handedly. So it's super, super uncommon for a woman to actually run away and do what she wants to do.
Absolutely. That's why Manju's character was amazing in the film, because the way she is sitting in that chair, which could be broken, I don't know. I mean, it was like a king size, queen size chair, like just sitting and just enjoying and just saying that I left all of them and I'm living my life. And to me, I think that was amazing, because to be able to do that in that age, again, like, because we try to restrict all of these traits depending on the age. Like you can have someone who is woke, yeah, like who can be woke, but he or she needs to be in a certain age bracket, or maybe like you said, a social status. How do you navigate through all these thoughts? Like, is it intentional that you want to show a character who is in her maybe mid 50s or 60s who has this trait? Because I believe that every now and then we can be tempted to also fit into that stereotype where we are taking chances, but we also want to fit into that. The same character could be someone who is in like mid 35, like she's 35, 36. So how do you do that?
Actually, the original didn't have this quality of woman, because there was a sweet couple who lived on the station, and actually it's something that I was very keen we bring in. So when Sneha and I first started working on the script, this is something Sneha entirely developed, but I was very keen that we have a woman there who could stand for the kind of woman we feel represents a changing idea of what being a woman is, or being independent is, or challenge these notions that women can be successful and alone. And I think she created just the most my favorite character.
Again, here you have 3 or 4 central women characters who are leading the story. That's not again very common. You can either have one lead and one lead actor and one lead actress, because common नहीं होता है कि बहुत सारे लोग एक साथ आए एक project पे. How have you dealt? Have you seen that shift? I think in today's time all of that is changing, but
newcomers,
just newcomers, and also just sharing screen space with more actors in general, because usually women are pitted against each other ना कि दो women तो नहीं आएंगी, ये तो नहीं होगा.
नहीं, I think especially amongst, I suppose, a new breed of studios, there is an interest in telling stories of unusual characters. Like actually showing different kinds of perspectives now is more fun for an audience. Like they don't only want to see that, bhale ghar ki bahu beti. They are actually more interested in, masti wale, interesting, romanchak, slightly more tikha, masaledar, all kinds of roles, if you know what I mean. So I feel like there is more space for that. It's just that you will have to ultimately cast, Alia Bhatt, Deepika Padukone, Kiara Advani, all kinds of known faces. You'll want those, because automatically when you're making a film already कि अरे ये subject में बहुत सारी लड़कियां हैं, you'll at least want to ensure yourself with superstars. That's the only difference. But there is lots and lots of in fact Bhumi did a film, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
There are lots of stories like that, but you need faces like, say, a Bhumi Pednekar, someone to anchor the project
and give their voice,
to stuff like that. It's unfortunately that is a fact. I mean, I think even if I was telling a story of an unknown man, it's more easy to sell a story of a struggling man than it is to tell a story of a struggling unknown woman. I'm saying unknown by which, like, say, a 12th fail. It's still easier in some way.
If the genders were replaced, then I don't know if it would have done the same numbers. Yeah.
That's just how it is. Also, like I said, of course, they have spending money, but like the numbers of men, for instance, who are, say, trying to get into the civil services far outweighs the number of women. So, and literally and we know the number of youth we have in this country, there must be crores of young people trying to get into the civil services. So, you have, it doesn't, so there are more men for certain subjects. And in fact, across the board, men form a majority of ticket buying audience. So then your stories become a certain way.
Lastly, now I want to know from you, in a writer's room, what is the one thing that you want to see changing? Like, for example, like I said, at least now they are aware, or they have people who can make them aware that there are characters and women are a sole entity. You don't need to write them only in accordance to a man's character.
A woman's voice, for sure, as we said, more place for women in the production process, because they see the entire thing with a lot more empathy. But more than anything else, I'd like to see the story win in a writer's room, because it is not about the man or the woman or the casting, getting an A-lister or a newcomer. I think nothing is beyond or bigger than the story or the film. So whatever is just correct for the story that you want to say has to come in place. And I would love for producers and production houses to support that. If it is a A-lister that you want, you get an A-lister. If it's a rank newcomer that you want, you get a rank newcomer. If it's a lady who's the hero of your story, let her be a lady. If it's a man who has the agency, let it be a man. Just let the story win is what I feel. We've been, we've been biased to our content. We're trying to change it to suit the market, to suit the target audience, to suit what sells, what will get you a return on investment. The corruption that we have in our mind to hit the numbers, to make a return on investment, to see to it that the project succeeds on the shoulders of well-known people or stars. If you're talking about writers, and I as a writer would genuinely want that let a beautiful story bloom on its own. Just give it the right kind of manure, right kind of mitti, right kind of nutrition that it needs. It's not the same for every plant. Every plant blooms differently. So just identify the content that you have and try and be real to it, be honest to it. And people are really ready for the stories that you want to say.
I completely agree to that.
I have something to add to that. I feel like writers' rooms, tend to, of course, they start with a story which, say, one writer has written or some idea that some creators come with. So that is, of course, will determine how, like she said, how you develop it.
Yeah.
But I genuinely feel what is important for us to do, because people, certain kinds of people have access to filmmakers, to producers, to studios. And it's our job now that we are established to open the door for others, to hold the door open for other kinds of voices to come in. And it may not be organic. It might have to be us putting on that hat to say, we should have a queer person in the room. We need to have a person with disability in our crew, whatever happens. Like, we need to be able to consciously be inclusive, because that otherwise it doesn't change.
Yeah, absolutely.
It will not. And even for us as women, we need to hold the door open. I, as a filmmaker, have to ensure that my set has ideally at least 30 to 40, if not 50% women.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, how am I making any difference? I can keep on telling women's stories, but we need to be empowered to be able to drive the business, to take decisions in this business, and our rooms have to reflect what we would dream of having, especially when we are in the position to decide, right? So as our rooms should be more inclusive and more representative of what we feel, and those voices are only going to add great value. Somebody who's coming from a completely different background, not a cis male gendered person, but someone from other,
like a queer person would be able to help with a story and be more inclusive from their point of view, which is more authentic.
You need different
rather
voices.
Than me thinking that I can step into that shoe and give a voice, because it will be all.
And I'm saying this is not only to do with subjects that are LGBTQI subjects. I'm saying in general, you have people. Everybody comes from their own perspective, their own headspace. They bring different kinds of experience to the table, which really makes your room richer. So we need to be representative and inclusive in our rooms.
I feel that with your production, is that one of the reasons why you started? I mean, Amir Khan Productions, of course, I think to some level was doing that anyway. But I feel with Kindling Productions, you are trying to push that envelope a lot more. Is that why you decided?
It's certainly one of the conscious decisions we've taken, me and my producer Tanaji. I personally, as a filmmaker and a producer, I feel it's my duty. It's actually something that I need to do. To just have a good conscience, and also I genuinely feel it'll help our stories. It'll make our lives better. And of course, like Sneha said, we need good stories to begin with. We need great writers. They have to be great writers if they're in a writing room. Doesn't matter what their background is, right? But if we cast the net out a little further than we usually do and try to include people from other backgrounds, it's good for the industry, good for the story.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much, both of you. I feel that this was a very enriching conversation for me as well. And I hope that whatever you have set out to sort of achieve, in terms of just pushing the boundaries and opening the door for many more people and many more opportunities that can happen very, very soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. That was wonderful.
Thank you. I can go on and on because I have so much to talk. But thank you so much.